The lights in the great meeting hall on Nexus Prime flickered like dying stars. Ambassador Veltara stood at the center of the room, her crystal body shaking with fear. Around her, representatives from 50 different alien worlds sat in their floating chairs, all watching her with worried eyes. "Friends," Veltara began, her voice barely loud enough to hear. "We are dying." The hall became completely silent. Even the machines that cleaned the air seemed to stop working for a moment. "The Devourer swarm has eaten 3 more star systems in the past week," she continued. "Our best ships cannot stop them. Our strongest weapons break against their hulls, like water against stone." Elder Zephon, the oldest member of the Galactic Council, moved his ancient body forward in his chair. His skin was gray and covered in wrinkles that told stories of 1,000 years of life. When he spoke, everyone listened. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked. 7,000 in the last month, Veltara answered. "And each time we fight them, they become stronger. They learn from our weapons. They copy our technology and make it better." A representative from the Krell Empire, a large creature with 6 arms and skin like metal, stood up. "What about the new plasma cannons from the Vega shipyards? Surely those can— "We tried them yesterday," Veltara cut him off. "The Devourers absorbed the energy and used it to power their own weapons. They killed an entire fleet in minutes." The hall erupted in frightened voices. Some aliens clicked their mandibles in worry. Others made high-pitched whining sounds. A few simply stared at the floor, knowing that death was coming for them all. Elder Zephon raised one thin hand, and the room became quiet again. "There is one option we have not tried," he said slowly. "One group we have not asked for help." Veltara's crystal body began to glow with a pale blue light. She knew what he meant, and the thought terrified her more than the Devourer swarm itself. "You cannot mean," she whispered. "The humans," Zephon said the word like it was a curse. "The Deathworlders." A shiver of pure terror ran through the assembled aliens. The humans, those strange, violent creatures from the 3rd planet of a yellow star. They had joined the galactic community only 50 years ago, and in that time, they had made everyone nervous. Their homeworld was classified as Extreme Hazard Class 12. Most aliens could not even breathe the air there without dying. The gravity would crush the bones of any civilized being. The oceans were filled with salt that would burn through most alien skin, and the creatures that lived there— Veltara remembered the first time she had seen a recording from Earth. She had watched a small human child playing with a creature called a dog. The dog was larger than the child and had teeth that could tear through metal. But the child was not afraid. Instead, the child was happy, laughing as the monster licked its face with a tongue that could have killed most galactic citizens. That was when Veltara realized that humans were not normal. They lived on a world that actively tried to kill them every day, and they thought it was fun. "The humans offered to help us before," said the Krell representative. "When the Void Pirates attacked the outer colonies, we refused their aid because we were terrified of what they might do," Veltara finished. "And we were right to be scared." She activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed the battle records from the few times humans had fought in space. The images made several aliens look away in disgust. Human ships did not fight like civilized beings. They did not engage in proper combat at safe distances with energy weapons. Instead, they flew directly at their enemies, firing projectiles made of solid metal at incredible speeds. When their ships were damaged, they did not retreat to repair them. They used the damaged parts as weapons, ramming them into enemy vessels, like guided meteors. But it was the ground combat footage that truly horrified the assembled aliens. Humans fought with their own bodies. They used primitive weapons like knives and explosive devices. When they ran out of ammunition, they picked up rocks and threw them. When they were injured, they kept fighting until they died. "They are monsters," whispered a representative from the Centauri Federation. "Beautiful, terrifying monsters." "Yes," agreed Elder Zephon. "But they are our monsters. And right now, we need monsters to fight monsters." Veltara closed her eyes, which was actually just her crystal body dimming its light. She thought about her home planet, with its peaceful blue skies and gentle gravity. She thought about the billions of her people who lived there, creating art and poetry and music. In 10 days, if the devourer swarm was not stopped, all of that would be gone. "What do we know about their current military status?" she asked. An aide, a small creature with large eyes and gray skin, stepped forward with a data pad. "According to our intelligence reports, the humans have been expanding their space navy rapidly. They now have over 200 warships, though most are smaller than our standard vessels. Their technology is unusual." "Unusual how?" asked. "The Krell representative. They build their weapons to break," the aide explained. "When a human missile explodes, it sends out thousands of small metal fragments that continue to cause damage. Their ships are designed to keep fighting even when half destroyed. And their soldiers—" The aide paused, looking uncomfortable. "Their soldiers are modified." "Modified how?" Veltara asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know the answer. "They change their own bodies to be stronger, faster, and more resistant to damage. Some can survive in the vacuum of space for short periods. Others can see in complete darkness or hear sounds from miles away. They turn themselves into living weapons." The hall was silent again. Every alien present was imagining what it would be like to face such creatures in battle. The images in their minds were not pleasant. Elder Zephon spoke again, his ancient voice, carrying the weight of his decision. "We are facing extinction. Every day we wait, more of our people die. The devourers will not stop. They cannot be reasoned with or bargained with. They exist only to consume and grow stronger." He paused, looking around the room at each representative. "If we must choose between death by the devourers or salvation by the humans, I choose salvation. Even if that salvation comes with teeth and claws." Veltara knew he was right. She had seen the reports from the planets the devourers had already consumed. There were no survivors, no ruins, no trace that intelligent life had ever existed there. Just empty space where entire civilizations had once thrived. "I will send the distress signal to Earth," she announced. "May the cosmos forgive us for what we are about to unleash." As the meeting ended and the aliens began to leave, Elder Zephon remained in his chair. He stared at the holographic display which still showed images of human warfare. In one image, a human soldier was carrying a wounded comrade while firing a weapon with his other hand. The soldier was bleeding and clearly injured, but his eyes showed no fear, only determination. "Perhaps," Zephon whispered to himself, "the real monsters are not the ones we are calling for help. Perhaps the real monsters are the ones who made it necessary to call them." 3 hours later, a message was sent across the galaxy at faster-than-light speed. It carried the official seal of the Galactic Council and was addressed to Earth Defense Command. The message was simple. "We need your help. The galaxy is dying. Please come." On Earth, in a military facility buried deep beneath the Korean mountains, Admiral Tae-ho received the message. He read it 3 times, then smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. The alarm bells in the Korean Space Defense Force headquarters sounded like angry metal beasts. Deep underground, in a facility that could survive a direct hit from a nuclear weapon, Admiral Tae-ho sat at his desk reading the alien message for the 4th time. His office was small and simple. No decorations hung on the walls except for 2 pictures. One showed his daughter on her wedding day. The other showed his unit from the Mars Colony War, back when humans were still fighting each other instead of helping aliens. The door to his office opened and Lieutenant Hae-jin stepped inside. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, and her salute was sharp and quick. "Sir, we have received similar distress calls from 17 other human military commands," she reported. "The British Space Navy, the American Fleet Command, the Japanese Defense Force, and all the others. Every human military organization in the galaxy has been contacted." Tae-ho nodded slowly. He had expected this. When aliens finally decided they needed human help, they always asked everyone at once. They were too scared to trust just one human nation with their survival. "What does Earth Central Command say?" he asked. "They want a full briefing in 2 hours, sir." All fleet commanders are to attend via quantum link. Tae-ho stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over the underground hangar. Below him, hundreds of human technicians worked on ships that would give most aliens nightmares. The vessels were gray and black with sharp edges and weapon ports that looked like hungry mouths. These were not ships built for exploration or peaceful contact. These were ships built to kill things. "Tell Captain Minseo to prepare her squadron," he ordered. "Full combat loadout, but keep the experimental weapons hidden for now. We don't want to scare our new alien friends too much." Hye-jin made a note on her electronic pad. "Should I contact Dr. Jae-won as well? The aliens mentioned something called the Devourer Swarm in their message. He might have insights." "Good thinking. Yes, get Jae-won down here, and tell him to bring his files on adaptive enemy behavior." After Hye-jin left, Tae-ho continued staring at his ships. He had been preparing for this day for years. Not this exact situation, but something like it. Humans had learned long ago that the universe was dangerous. Every other species seemed to discover this only when it was too late. 30 minutes later, Captain Minseo arrived in his office. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but she moved like a hunting cat. Her flight suit was covered in patches from different battles, and her hands had the steady control of someone who had flown combat missions in 3 different star systems. "Admiral," she said, sitting down without waiting for permission. Minseo had served under Tae-ho for 8 years. They had fought together, bled together, and saved each other's lives more times than either cared to count. Formal military courtesy was for other people. "What do you think?" Tae-ho asked, handing her the alien message. Minseo read quickly, her dark eyes moving back and forth across the text. When she finished, she looked up with a grin that would have terrified the aliens who sent the message. "About time," she said. "My pilots have been getting soft with all this peacekeeping work. A real fight will do them good. This isn't going to be like the pirates or the smugglers," Tae-ho warned. "The aliens are scared, Minseo, really scared. Whatever this devourer swarm is, it has them ready to call on the humans for help. That means it's either very dangerous or very good at killing aliens." "Or both," Minseo added cheerfully. "Even better. My squadron has been testing the new adaptive targeting systems. If these devourers learn from each battle like the message suggests, we'll finally have a chance to see how well our learning weapons work against learning enemies." Before Tae-ho could respond, Dr. Jae-won entered the office. He was a tall, thin man with thick glasses and hands that were always stained with chemical burns from his laboratory work. Where Minseo looked like a warrior, Jae-won looked like a scholar. But Tae-ho knew that appearances could be misleading. Jae-won's mind was one of the most dangerous weapons in the human arsenal. "I've been analyzing the alien transmission," Jae-won said without any greeting. "The linguistic patterns suggest extreme stress, possibly panic. They're not just asking for help. They're begging." He activated a holographic projector and filled the air above Tae-ho's desk with images and data. "Based on what little information they've provided, I believe this devourer swarm exhibits characteristics similar to several Earth species. Army ants, maybe, or certain types of bacteria that consume and adapt to their environment." "Meaning?" Tae-ho asked. "Meaning they're probably not truly intelligent in the way we understand the term. They're following instinct, which makes them predictable. But they're also adaptive, which makes them dangerous to species that rely on standard tactics." Minseo leaned forward in her chair. "What kind of weapons are we looking at?" "Unknown, but probably biomechanical. If they're truly adaptive, they'll learn from every attack and develop defenses. Most alien species would see this as an impossible challenge." Jae-won paused and smiled. It was not a nice smile. But humans specialize in impossible challenges. 2 hours later, Tae-ho sat in the communications center with 11 other human fleet commanders from around the galaxy. Their faces appeared as holograms around a circular table, creating the illusion that they were all in the same room. Admiral Chen from the American Deep Space Fleet spoke first. "So the aliens finally want our help. After 50 years of treating us like dangerous pets, they're ready to let us off the leash." "The question," said Commander Singh from the Indian Defense Force, "is whether we should help them at all. They've made it clear they don't trust us or want us around." "They don't have to like us," replied Admiral Volkov from the Russian Space Navy. "But they need us, And frankly, I'm curious to see what kind of threat could scare the entire Galactic Council into asking for human assistance. Admiral Tanaka from the Japanese fleet raised a concern. What if this is a trap? What if the aliens have decided we're too dangerous and want to eliminate us? Then they're even stupider than I thought. Minseo's voice came from the speakers. She wasn't officially part of the command staff, but Tai-Ho had included her in the meeting anyway. If they wanted to kill us, the last thing they would do is ask us to bring our weapons to their space. The debate continued for another hour, but Tai-Ho already knew what the decision would be. Humans didn't abandon people who asked for help, even if those people had spent decades avoiding them. It was both their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. Finally, Admiral Peterson from Earth Central Command made the official announcement. Operation Mongol Storm is now active. Each fleet command will contribute ships and personnel according to their capabilities. Our goal is not just to help the aliens, but to demonstrate that humans can be trusted allies. And if we can't save them, asked Admiral Chen, then we make sure whatever killed them doesn't come looking for Earth next, Peterson replied. After the meeting ended, Tai-Ho walked down to the hangar where his ships waited. Captain Minseo found him there, standing next to her personal fighter, a sleek vessel called Soul's Fury. "When do we leave?" she asked. "Tomorrow morning. I want to arrive at the alien staging area before any of the other human fleets. First impressions matter, and I want the aliens to see what Korean efficiency looks like." Minseo ran her hand along the hull of her ship. The metal was scarred from dozens of battles, but it was clean and well-maintained. Like all human military equipment, it was built to function in the worst possible conditions. "Admiral," she said quietly, "what if we can't win this one? What if whatever scared the aliens is too much even for us?" Tai-Ho looked at her with surprise. In all their years together, he had never heard Minseo express doubt about a mission. "Then we do what humans always do," he answered. "We fight until we can't fight anymore. We learn from every mistake. We adapt to every challenge. And if we die, we make sure our deaths mean something." Minseo nodded, her confidence returning. "The aliens called us monsters. Maybe it's time to show them what monsters can do when they're fighting for the right cause." "Maybe," Tai-Ho agreed. "But remember, we're not doing this to impress the aliens or to prove how dangerous we are. We're doing this because people are dying, and we have the power to save them." As the two humans stood in the hangar, surrounded by ships designed for war, neither of them noticed the small alien device hidden in the shadows. It had been recording their conversation, sending every word back to intelligence agencies across the galaxy. The aliens wanted human help, but they also wanted to know exactly what kind of monsters they were inviting into their space. The human fleet arrived at the Selani border like ghosts made of metal and death. 12 ships, each one scarred from battles that most aliens could not even imagine, took position alongside what remained of the Galactic Defense Force. The contrast was immediate and terrifying. The alien ships were beautiful. They curved and flowed like living art, with hulls that shimmered in the starlight and energy fields that painted space in soft colors. They looked like they had been built by poets and dreamers. The human ships looked like they had been built by nightmares. Captain Minseo sat in the pilot seat of Soul's Fury, watching the alien formations through her display screens. Her ship was smaller than most of the alien vessels, but its hull was thick and covered in weapon ports. Where the alien ships had smooth lines, hers had sharp angles designed to deflect energy blasts. Where they had decorative lights, she had targeting systems. "This is Captain Minseo of the Korean destroyer Soul's Fury to all Galactic Defense Forces," she announced over the communication channels. "Clear the engagement zone immediately. We are about to demonstrate standard human combat procedures." The response was immediate chaos. Alien voices filled the radio frequencies, all talking at once in dozens of different languages. The translation computers struggled to keep up, but Minseo could understand the general meaning. The aliens were asking questions, giving warnings, and expressing doubt about human capabilities. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Velkari of the Selani Defense Fleet," came a voice that sounded like music made of crystal. The Devourer bioship approaching your position is heavily armored and has adaptive shielding. Our most powerful weapons cannot penetrate its defenses. Perhaps you should reconsider your approach. Min Seo looked at her weapons display. Every system showed green status lights. Her crew of 15 humans sat at their stations, calm and ready. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. "Acknowledged, Admiral Velkari," Min Seo replied. "Watch and learn." The Devourer ship that emerged from hyperspace was beautiful in the way that certain spiders are beautiful. It was organic, flowing, and absolutely deadly. A kilometer long and half as wide, its hull looked like it was made of living metal that pulsed with internal light. Energy conduits ran along its surface like veins, and weapon ports opened and closed like breathing gills. Min Seo's sensor officer, Lieutenant Dong Su, reported what his instruments were telling him. "Captain, the enemy vessel's hull is adapting to our scan frequencies. It's learning about our sensors and adjusting its defenses accordingly." "Expected," Min Seo replied. "Switch to passive sensors only. We go in dark." The alien observers watched, in confusion as the human ship suddenly seemed to disappear from their detection systems. Sol's fury was still visible to the naked eye, but all electronic signatures had vanished. The ship was flying blind and invisible. "Human vessel, respond immediately." Admiral Velkari's voice carried a note of panic. "Your ship has disappeared from our tracking systems. Are you experiencing technical difficulties?" "Negative," Min Seo answered calmly. "We are beginning our attack run. What happened next would be studied by military academies across the galaxy for decades to come." The human ship accelerated directly toward the Devourer vessel, not at an angle for a safe weapons pass, but straight on, like a spear thrown by an angry god. The Devourer ship fired everything it had: energy beams that could melt asteroids, plasma bolts that burned at stellar temperatures, and gravity weapons that could crush a moon. All of these weapons struck the human ship directly and bounced off. "Hull polarization holding steady," reported Engineer Yu Jin from her station. "Enemy weapons are being absorbed and redirected into our power systems. We're actually gaining energy from their attacks." The alien observers could not believe what they were seeing. The human ship was not just surviving the Devourer assault, it was feeding on it. Every energy blast that should have destroyed the vessel instead made it stronger and faster. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Velkari. "No shield technology can redirect that much energy." "It's not shields," Dr. Jae-won's voice came over the communication channel from Admiral Taeho's flagship. "It's the hull material itself. We've created a metal that learns and adapts, just like the enemy. But our adaptation is controlled and directed." Sol's fury closed the distance to the Devourer ship in seconds. Instead of firing weapons, it did something that horrified every alien observer. It rammed directly into the enemy hull, its reinforced nose piercing the bioship's armor like a needle through skin. "Boarding pods away," Commander Dongwu reported from the ship's assault bay. "First team is inside the enemy vessel." What followed was not warfare as the aliens understood it. It was extermination. Commander Dongwu led his team of 20 humans through the corridors of the Devourer ship. Each human wore armor that could survive in vacuum, underwater, or in the poisonous atmosphere of a gas giant. Their weapons were simple by alien standards: projectile rifles that fired metal bullets and explosive devices that used chemical reactions instead of energy. But simple did not mean ineffective. The Devourer crew was unlike anything in the galactic databases. They were part machine, part biological organism, with metal limbs and organic brains. They moved through their ship like a living fluid, adapting to threats and coordinating their responses through some kind of shared consciousness. They had never encountered anything like humans. "Contact front," Dongwu reported as his team met the first group of Devourer defenders. The aliens had weapons that could adjust their energy output to match any threat they had previously encountered. But they had never encountered humans. The human bullets tore through Devourer bodies like they were made of paper. The aliens tried to adapt, growing thicker armor and energy shields. The humans responded by using explosive rounds that didn't need to penetrate, they just needed to get close. "Their adaptation process is too slow," Dongwu observed as his team advanced through the ship. "They need time to analyze threats and develop countermeasures. We're not giving them time." The humans moved through the Devourer ship like a plague of destruction. They didn't try to capture important areas or disable specific systems. They simply killed everything they found and moved on. Room by room, corridor by corridor, they turned a living ship into a dead one. Interesting, Dr. J1 commented as he monitored the boarding action from his laboratory. The Devourer bioship is trying to seal off the infected areas and sacrifice parts of itself to save the whole. It's treating our boarding party like a disease. Are they wrong? Admiral Tejo asked. No, J1 replied. They are not wrong. At all. Within 2 hours, Commander Dongwu reported that the Devourer ship was completely under human control. His team had killed or captured every member of the enemy crew and secured all major systems. Ship secured, he announced. Beginning data extraction and technology analysis. The alien observers sat in stunned silence as they watched the human ship's work. The Devourer vessel, which had destroyed dozens of their best warships, had been captured intact by a single human destroyer and 20 soldiers. How? Admiral Velkari finally asked. How is this possible? That bioship had adaptive defenses against every known weapon type. It should have been able to counter your attacks. Within minutes, Captain Minseo's response was broadcast to every alien ship in the area. Admiral, you've been fighting these things the wrong way. You're trying to overpower their defenses with bigger guns and stronger shields. But adaptation is not about being stronger. It's about being smarter. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Devourer ship adapted to energy weapons, so we used projectile weapons. It adapted to long-range attacks, so we fought at close range. It adapted to ship-to-ship combat, so we boarded it and fought hand-to-hand. Every time it learned to counter our tactics, we changed our tactics faster than it could adapt. Dr. Jawan added his own explanation. The key insight is that adaptation requires time and information. If you can deny your enemy both time and predictable information, their adaptation becomes a weakness instead of a strength. Admiral Tejo's voice cut through the discussion. Dr. Jawan, what did you learn from the captured ship? Fascinating data, Admiral. The Devourers are not a single species. They're a collection of different biological and mechanical components that have been combined into a single entity. Think of them as a virus that infects technology and biology equally. Can we use this information? Oh yes, Jawan replied, and the aliens listening could hear the smile in his voice. We can definitely use this information. In fact, I believe we can turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. As the human fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of the battle, the alien observers tried to process what they had witnessed. The Devourer ship that had seemed unstoppable was now being studied by human scientists who dissected its technology like doctors examining a patient. Admiral Velkari, one of her subordinates, asked quietly, "What have we done? What kind of monsters have we invited into our space?" Velkari watched as human technicians crawled over the captured bioship like ants over a fallen tree. They worked with efficiency and precision that was both admirable and terrifying. "I don't know," she answered honestly, "but I think we're about to find out." The Devourer swarm's response to their first defeat came like an angry storm made of metal and death. 50 bioships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system, their hulls already showing modifications designed to counter human tactics. They had learned from their lost scout vessel, and they were hungry for revenge. Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge of his flagship Inchen's Pride, watching the enemy fleet approach with the calm patience of a man who had spent 30 years preparing for exactly this moment. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. No one spoke unless they had something important to report. "Enemy formation analysis complete," reported Lieutenant Hyajin from her communications station. "The bioships are showing hull modifications consistent with anti-projectile defenses. They've grown thicker armor and energy disruption fields." "Expected," Tejo replied. "Dr. J1, is our surprise ready?" From his position at the science station, Dr. J1 looked up from his instruments with the expression of a teacher who was about to give his students a very difficult test. "The modified Devourer beacon is transmitting on all frequencies, Admiral. As far as they know, we have a heavily damaged human ship trying to limp back to friendly space." "And the fusion mines?" Engineer Yujin answered from her position at the weapons control panel. Deployed and ready, sir. They're disguised as ship debris and scattered throughout the projected enemy path. When the Devourers try to adapt to our weapon signatures, they'll trigger a cascade reaction in their own power cores, Tejo finished. Beautiful. Sometimes the best way to kill your enemy is to let them kill themselves. The trap had been set with the kind of careful planning that separated professional soldiers from amateur fighters. The humans had studied the captured Devourer technology for 3 days, learning how their adaptation systems worked. The key insight had come from Dr. Jawan's analysis of their power distribution networks. The Devourers share information through energy resonance patterns, he had explained to the human command staff. When one ship learns something new, it broadcasts that knowledge to all nearby vessels through their power systems. It's very efficient, but it has a weakness. The weakness was that the same energy networks used for sharing information could also be used to share destruction. Captain Minseo's voice crackled over the communication channel from Soul's Fury. Admiral, my ship is in position at the far end of the debris field. All systems are powered down to minimum levels. To their sensors, we should look like a derelict vessel. Acknowledged, Tejo replied. Remember, the key to this operation is timing. You need to make them chase you through the entire minefield before we spring the trap. Understood, sir. My pilots are ready to put on a show. The performance that followed would have won awards if it had been staged in a theater. Minseo's ship limped through space like a wounded animal, trailing fake energy emissions and debris. Her engines sputtered and sparked in exactly the way a damaged human vessel would behave. To the approaching Devourer fleet, Soul's Fury looked like easy prey. The bioships took the bait immediately. They accelerated toward the seemingly helpless human vessel, their hulls already adapting to counter the weapon types they had learned about in the previous battle. Energy-absorbing armor plates grew along their sides. Projectile-deflecting force fields activated around their most vulnerable areas. They were ready for anything the humans might throw at them. They were not ready for what the humans had actually planned. Enemy ships are entering the minefield, reported Lieutenant Dong-Su from the sensor station. They're scanning each piece of debris as they pass, but the fusion devices are reading as standard shipwreckage. Because they are standard shipwreckage, Yujin explained with satisfaction. We just added a few extra components. The fusion devices won't activate until they detect the specific energy signatures of Devourer adaptation systems. The chase continued for 20 minutes. Minseo led the enemy fleet deeper into the trap, her ship performing every maneuver of a desperate retreat. She fired weapons that missed their targets by just enough to look like the shots of a damaged fire control system. She released escape pods at irregular intervals, making it look like her crew was abandoning ship. All the while, the Devourer ships grew more confident. They spread out into a hunting formation, preparing to surround and capture the human vessel. Their hulls continued to adapt, growing new weapons and defensive systems based on what they thought they had learned about human capabilities. This is almost sad, Commander Dongwu observed from the tactical station. They think they understand us now. That's exactly what we want them to think, Tejo replied. The more confident they become, the deeper they'll chase us into the kill zone. At exactly the right moment, Minseo triggered the final phase of the deception. Her ship suddenly accelerated as if its engines had been repaired, racing toward the center of the debris field. The Devourer ships followed immediately, not wanting to lose their prize. Now, Tejo ordered, Yujin activated her masterpiece. The fusion mines hidden throughout the debris field didn't explode outward like normal weapons. Instead, they collapsed inward, creating tiny stars that burned for exactly 3 seconds each. The Devourer ships, with their energy-absorbing hulls and adaptive shielding, tried to contain the fusion reactions just as they had been designed to do, but these fusion reactions were too powerful to contain. And more importantly, they were designed to feed on the same energy that the bioships used for their adaptation systems. The first Devourer vessel to trigger a mine simply vanished in a ball of stellar fire. The energy released by its destruction activated 5 more mines, which destroyed 5 more ships, which activated even more mines. Within seconds, the entire enemy fleet was caught in a cascade of artificial suns. 37 confirmed kills, Lieutenant Hyejin reported with professional calm. 13 ships escaped to hyperspace before the reaction could reach them. Damage to our forces? Tejo asked. None, sir. All human vessels maintained safe. distance from the engagement zone. The alien observers who had watched the battle sat in stunned silence. They had just witnessed 50 Devourer bioships, ships that had destroyed entire galactic fleets, eliminated by what appeared to be floating space junk. Impossible, Admiral Velkari whispered over the communication channel. How did you turn debris into weapons capable of destroying an entire fleet? Dr. J. Wan answered her question with the patience of a teacher explaining a simple concept to a confused student. We didn't turn debris into weapons, Admiral. We turned the enemy ships into weapons against themselves. The fusion devices were just triggers. The real destructive force came from the Devourer's own power systems. But how did you know it would work? Because we understand the fundamental principle of adaptation, J-Wan replied. Evolution always seeks efficiency. The Devourers developed energy-absorbing hulls because they were fighting enemies who used energy weapons. But efficiency in one area often creates vulnerability in another. Captain Min Seo's ship emerged from the debris field completely undamaged, her hull gleaming in the light of the slowly fading fusion fires. Her voice over the communication channel carried a note of satisfaction. Trap successful, Admiral. All enemy vessels eliminated or driven from the system. But Taeho wasn't celebrating yet. He knew that this victory, impressive as it appeared, was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. Dr. J-Wan, he asked, how long before the surviving ships adapt to this tactic? J-Wan consulted his instruments and calculations. Based on their learning curve from the previous engagement, I estimate they'll develop countermeasures within 2 battles. The next time we meet them, they'll be immune to fusion cascade reactions. And the time after that? They'll probably have developed weapons specifically designed to kill humans, biological agents maybe, or energy frequencies that disrupt our nervous systems. Taeho nodded grimly. This was the problem with fighting adaptive enemies. Every victory was temporary, and every tactic could only be used once. Then we'd better make sure there isn't a time after that, he said. Signal the fleet. We're going to end this war before the enemy has time to learn how to win it. The alien observers listened to this conversation with growing horror. The humans had just won what seemed like an impossible victory, but they were already planning for an even more dangerous battle. They spoke of ending the war not through negotiation or retreat, but through complete destruction of their enemies. Admiral Taeho, Admiral Velkari asked hesitantly, what exactly are you planning? Taeho's response was broadcast to every alien ship in the system. His voice carried the calm certainty of a man who had made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. We're going to the source, Admiral. We're going to find the Devourer home base, and we're going to teach them why it's a bad idea to threaten species under human protection. As the human fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of their campaign, the aliens watching them realized that they had not just witnessed a battle. They had witnessed the birth of something new and terrible in the galaxy. The humans were no longer just helping to defend against the Devourer swarm. They were hunting it. The Devourer home base hung in space like a cancer made of metal and flesh. It was enormous, larger than most moons, and it pulsed with the stolen energy of a dozen consumed star systems. Organic conduits as thick as city blocks connected massive, biomechanical structures that served as shipyards, research centers, and nurseries for new Devourer vessels. Admiral Taeho stood in the emergency session of the Galactic Council, his image transmitted from his flagship orbiting the alien construct. Around him, holographic representatives from 50 species listened in horrified fascination as he explained humanity's final strategy. The situation is simple, he told the assembled aliens. In 48 hours, the Devourers will complete their adaptation to human combat methods. They are already growing bioweapons specifically designed to kill us. Our blood, our breathing patterns, our nervous system responses. They have learned all of this from our previous battles. Ambassador Veltara's crystalline form flickered with confusion. Then surely you must retreat. If they are preparing weapons that can kill humans, your species is in terrible danger. No, Taeho replied, with the calm certainty of a man who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Retreat is not an option, not for us, and not for you. He gestured to the tactical display that showed the massive enemy base. This facility produces approximately 50 new bioships every standard day. If we allow it to continue operating, the Devourers will consume the entire galaxy within 5 years. Every species, every planet, every trace of civilization will be gone. Elder Zephon, his ancient voice carrying the weight of 1,000 years, asked the question that everyone was thinking. What do you propose, Admiral? If your weapons cannot penetrate their defenses, and they are preparing weapons that can destroy you, how can this conflict be won? Tejo smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. We're going to give them exactly what they want. We're going to let them adapt to become the perfect hunters of humans. And then we're going to show them what it really means to be human. Dr. Jawan appeared on the display next to the Admiral, his laboratory coat stained with chemical burns, and his eyes bright with the fever of discovery. The plan is elegant in its simplicity, he explained to the confused aliens. Instead of fighting the Devourer adaptation process, we're going to accelerate it. Every human ship in the attack fleet is carrying biological samples, genetic material, and psychological profiles. We want the Devourers to learn everything about us. But that's suicide, protested a representative from the Krell Empire. If they learn how to hunt humans effectively, your entire species is doomed. You're thinking like prey, Dr. Jawan replied with disturbing cheerfulness. The problem is that you don't understand what it means to adapt to a Deathworlder. The Devourers think they're learning how to hunt us more effectively. Actually, they're learning how to become us. The alien representative sat in stunned silence as the implications of this strategy became clear. The humans weren't trying to win a conventional battle. They were trying to infect their enemies with humanity itself. The key insight, Jawan continued, is that adaptation is not just about developing better weapons or stronger defenses. True adaptation means changing your fundamental nature to better suit your environment, and the environment that humans evolved in was unlike anything else in the galaxy. Captain Minseo's voice joined the conversation from her position aboard Soul's Fury. Dr. Jawan, are the infection vectors ready? Affirmative. Every ship is equipped with microscopic machines that will appear to Devourer sensors as human cellular material. When they absorb these samples, they'll think they're learning about our biology. Instead, they'll be downloading our psychology. The attack began exactly on schedule. The human fleet, now reduced to 8 ships after their previous battles, approached the massive Devourer base with weapons blazing. But these were not weapons designed to destroy. They were weapons designed to deliver a very specific payload. Captain Minseo led the assault, her Soul's Fury broadcasting human brain patterns directly into the Devourer communication network. Every thought, every emotion, every instinct that made humans the apex predators of their homeworld was transmitted at high intensity. Commander Dongwu's boarding teams carried samples of Earth's most successful microorganisms, bacteria and viruses that had evolved alongside humans for millions of years. When Devourer bioships absorbed these samples, they thought they were gaining insight into human weaknesses. Instead, they were being colonized by life forms that had learned to thrive in the most dangerous environment in the known galaxy. Engineer Yu Jin's contribution was perhaps the most elegant. Her nanomachines were designed to look exactly like human white blood cells, complete with the aggressive programming that made the human immune system so effective. When the Devourers absorbed them, thinking they were learning about human biology, they were actually installing the software that would teach them to fight like humans. The effect was not immediate, but it was devastating. The first sign of success came 6 hours into the battle. Devourer bioships began attacking each other, their shared consciousness fragmenting as individual vessel commanders developed human traits like paranoia, aggression, and the overwhelming drive to be the alpha predator. Fascinating, Dr. Jawan observed as he monitored the enemy fleet's behavior. They're experiencing the same psychological pressures that shaped human evolution. Competition for resources, territorial disputes, and the constant need to prove dominance. Is it working? Admiral Tejo asked. Better than I hoped. Their collective consciousness is breaking down as individual units develop human-style egos and ambitions. They're becoming individuals instead of a unified swarm. The massive Devourer base began to tear itself apart from within. Bioships that had been constructed to work together as a unified organism suddenly found themselves driven by conflicting human instincts. Some wanted to dominate their neighbors, others wanted to escape and find new territory to control. Still, Others simply wanted to fight everything in sight. Lieutenant Hyojin reported from her communication station, "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from 17 Devourer vessels. They're asking for terms of individual capitulation." "Individual?" Taeho asked with interest. "Yes, sir. They're no longer communicating as a collective. Each ship is trying to negotiate its own separate peace treaty. The final phase of the battle was unlike anything in galactic history. The humans found themselves not fighting a unified enemy, but mediating between dozens of Devourer factions that were all trying to claim territory and establish dominance over their former allies." Captain Min Seo's ship received a communication from one of the bio vessels that made her laugh out loud. "Captain, this is Bioship Designation 7 Alpha. We wish to negotiate an alliance against Bioship Designation 9 Beta. They have claimed the resource processing facility, but we believe our claim is superior based on our combat performance in the previous engagement. They're not just thinking like humans," Min Seo reported to Admiral Taeho. "They're acting like humans. Competitive, territorial, and absolutely convinced that they deserve to win." Dr. Jaewon monitored the transformation with scientific fascination. The beautiful irony is that by trying to become perfect human hunters, they've actually become human. And humans don't hunt in collective swarms. They compete with each other for dominance. The massive bioconstruct that had served as the Devourer home base collapsed in on itself as different sections declared independence and began fighting for control of the facility's resources. What had once been a unified organism became a collection of warring city-states, each one convinced that it deserved to rule the others. "Admiral," Commander Dong-Woo reported from his boarding team, "the Central Coordination Center has been abandoned. It looks like the different bioship factions couldn't agree on who should control it, so they just left." "Abandoned their own command center?" Taeho asked with disbelief. "Yes, sir. There's evidence of a massive fight. Looks like they were arguing about leadership hierarchy and resource allocation. Very human arguments, actually." 6 hours later, the threat that had terrified the entire galaxy was effectively eliminated. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the simple application of human psychology to an enemy that didn't understand what it meant to be an individual. Admiral Taeho stood before the Galactic Council one final time, his report simple and direct. The Devourer swarm no longer exists as a unified threat. The individual bioships are currently engaged in territorial disputes with each other and have requested mediation services from various galactic governments. They appear to be developing concepts of individual property rights and personal ambition. "What does this mean for galactic security?" asked Elder Zephan. "It means you now have several dozen new species to deal with instead of one massive enemy. They'll probably spend the next few centuries fighting each other and trying to establish their own individual territories." Ambassador Veltara's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been relief or terror. "And your fleet, Admiral? Will the humans be staying to help manage this new situation?" Taeho shook his head. "Our job is finished. We were called to eliminate a threat to galactic civilization.